I'm here with Jon Fortt, my friend from the Tech Journalism World. Wanted to get his take on some of the hot issues of the day. So Jon, last week we saw that the EU fined Google $5.1 billion for antitrust concerns. What do you think about that? Do you think it's something that's going to hold? Do you think Google's going to be able to successfully appeal that?
I think chances are it will hold. Will they be able to appeal it successfully? Right on the border, but I'm going to say no. I think the EU has an antitrust system that's very different from the US that seeks to protect competition, not just protect consumers. And they've laid out an interesting case when it comes to Android that Google has set up a dynamic that benefits Google but doesn't benefit the ecosystem that the EU is concerned about here. So a lot of people are saying the $5 billion is a drop in the bucket for Google, and we talked about this on air. And while it is, the penalty for Google if they don't comply is pretty dramatic, and the potential shift in the tech ecosystem, empowering the likes of Amazon to perhaps create a forked version of Android, which they did already with Fire OS, but weren't able to get distribution of it. The potential now for that kind of thing to get traction makes it strategically important.
How do you see it as similar and different from the Microsoft antitrust case?
I think I'll talk to Brad Smith at Microsoft about how Microsoft strategically fought the government tooth and nail too long. I think a lot of the players in tech have kind of learned from that and are willing to compromise sooner when it's clear that they've lost. So I wouldn't be surprised if Google doesn't go completely full bore against this, because they don't need Android. They don't need full Android dominance as much now as they did 5 years ago. And I think they're probably, smart enough to recognize that. So I think it's different in that tech companies, Alphabet, Google, probably aren't going to make the same kind of almost religious mistake of belief in their own righteousness and trying to translate that into a legal strategy.
Do you think that the EU will become the de facto regulator of antitrust? Because the US hasn't done that.
I think it's already there. And, China could become the de facto regulator of M&A in this tariff environment.
Okay. So recently we saw news of an Uber driver in Missouri, I believe, who was live streaming his Uber rides. And it's a way of, it's basically an involuntary version of taxi cab confession. And, legally I think he might have been okay because that state is a one-party consent state. If either person knows that this is going on, that's fine. But from a privacy standpoint, it seems really creepy. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is creepy from a privacy standpoint. It's a momentum killer for I hate calling them ride-sharing companies because it's not really about sharing rides so much as it is about on-demand dispatch. But for the Ubers and Lyfts, and corporate policy is probably going to handle it. But I guess technically there are certain boundaries on how Uber and Lyft can tell drivers to conduct their business without them being classified as employees.
Right.
They're going to have to figure out a way to keep that from happening, either at the corporate level or at the local legal level, where I think in a lot of places, even if you are recording inside your home when holding an open house, it is seen as a violation of privacy because even in the business context, within a private residence, certain visitors are seen to have a a reasonable expectation of privacy. So I don't think that's going to last. It's a long and convoluted way of saying that.
Yeah. But those companies haven't shown a good job of policing all the other issues that have come up. What makes you think that they'll do better here?
Because it's a direct impact on their bottom line. A more direct impact. It's not only trust in the vague sense of, do I trust ride-hailing companies, or do I trust this brand? It's, do I feel safe inside this vehicle? So, yeah, I think they'll probably move decently quickly on that.
Got it. So there's been a lot of talk lately about the trade war with China, and most of the talk is centered around industrial companies like the car makers and Harley Davidson and so forth. How do you think that's going to impact tech companies?
I don't know. We puzzle over this a lot. I think the fear is that supply chains have become so complicated with so many moving parts that if one or two key components don't show up in time, aren't available, it can dramatically impact the delivery of a product. And then, we've seen 3-4 years ago with Apple being able to launch new phones in China, for example, how just regulators slow walking a product can have an impact on whether a company meets or misses expectations, and there are trickle-down effects. So I think that's the real most immediate way. I think it's less clear how it affects software, which doesn't have the same kinds of supply chain issues, but definitely has intellectual property issues. And there are a number of software companies I talk to that are hesitant to do business in China because of IP trade-offs. And if those situations don't get solved, I think that the danger over the medium term, say 3 to 5 years, is that China is moving so deliberately as far as the development of its own software economy that it might be able to incubate competitive software products and lock U.S. companies out of the market to a degree where the U.S. companies face more of a competitive disadvantage, not just in China, but regionally.
So one of the conversations that has been lacking in this trade dispute is, how do you keep China from doing that? Do you think the U.S. is going to be able to do that? Is it something that can be used as a conversation point in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I think it's possible. But I also think you'd expect China to have I guess at this point, 7-year plan for improving the domestic development of key economic assets. So to see that as a zero-sum game, I think some within a developing country like China see that as an existential threat to their economy and domestic economy in particular. So I think there has to probably be a deeper understanding of the fundamental economic goals on both sides and how each side can help the other achieve those goals while pushing them on some of the non-essentials. And my not just gut, but my gut combined with some conversations I've had with people far smarter than I am suggests that China's IP rules have been more about wanting to make sure that intellectual resources and even physical resources aren't simply extracted from China for the benefit of multinational corporations, but that China gets some asset of knowledge in return. There are other ways to do that other than harvesting IP from people who don't want it harvested. So, maybe at some point the conversation will turn there.
Gotcha. So we're a little bit past the halfway mark of the year. Who would you nominate as the tech CEO of the year if you had to do it right now?
Of the year, meaning just what they've been able to pull off?
Yeah, let's not focus on stock price because that's just, not that interesting. Who do you think has had the most impact on their company this year?
I'll put it this way, because I don't mean this as a prize to be given or saying that so and so is the best, but I think it's remarkable that Mark Zuckerberg has managed to weather the PR storms and the political pressure that he has, both in the US and in the EU, still maintain the stock price and the relative momentum of the company. I think that's just remarkable, that he's been Teflon to that degree.
Who do you think we should watch for the remainder of the year?
For the remainder of the year, I think we should watch eBay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
They just had a round layoff that was not insignificant.
that's why I think we should watch them. See, I'm messing with your question here. I'm not saying I think we should watch them because I think they're going to do great. I think we should watch them because a number of headwinds have arisen for them, including the recent Supreme Court decision, which makes
And you're referring to the sales tax.
the sales tax decision, which makes the commerce landscape more complex. And I keep going back to the fact that eBay used to have GSI Commerce, which was a tool maker or arms dealer for retailers writ large, retailers who aren't Amazon, and they basically got rid of it and stopped developing it internally. And that, I think, strategically was a mistake. I mean, imagine if eBay had a Shopify sidecar right now, and was seen as a partner to so many retailers at a time when complexity can be monetized in a way that was harder before. So watch eBay, I think, for how it manages to weather that or not. Companies like Avalara and Shopify, now Adobe's jumped into that tool maker, arms dealer space with the Magento Commerce acquisition. I think that'll be a key story heading into and through Q4.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, John. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Good talking to you, Raf.